Hello friends, very good evening to all of you. So today we are back with a new lecture, and this lecture, as you can see, that it is about GM crops, and you know that it is quite in the news. So there can be one or two questions from the GM crops in India, and if not, if somebody is preparing for 2023, right? 2023, then for him also this would be better because it's technical descriptive. They can ask such questions to you in year 2023. So if in the examination or in the interview, right, they ask you about your views related to the cultivation of GM crops, because you know that due to case in the Supreme Court, as government has given the approval, and there was some case in the Supreme Court that this approval is okay or not. So there can be some view-based question, right? They would not go into the technicalities of this thing, that what is GM crop and all in the interview. They would be going for your views, that what are your views and how do you support your views. The view is not only important, right? But important is how do you support your view for the thing. So that is the thing. Because government is promoting this. So while answering in the interview, try to be have positive view for this issue, that yes, also I also support the cultivation of GM crops. And why do you support, that is important, right? And how do you express your answer? What are the points you give in your support? That would be important, because see, anybody in the interview round giving answer for this question, they will say yes, but the panel would get impressed if you support your views with some valid scientific points, right? Not in general, because they want a good answer from you, because it is quite in the newspapers. So we'll discuss, if such question comes in front of you, that do you support cultivation of GM crops? Present your views. So you can start your answer, right? With all the things that has happened related to Dhara mustard hybrid 11, that is DMH-11 that we know. So how can you start your answer? That is important. You can start by saying that, yes, ours is a democratic country, right? India is a democratic country. It is the largest democratic country in the world, and everyone has their own opinion. Everybody has their own opinion, right? Somebody will having this opinion, positive. Somebody will have negative opinion. So everybody is free to express their views, but the final decision that should be taken, the final decision that should be taken should be weighed, right? Should be measured in terms of how many positives and how many negatives. If the positive things outweigh the negative factor, we should always accept the decision, because you know that in any decision there can be some positives, there can be some negatives, but we have to finally measure, right? We have to finally measure that, do the positive impacts outweigh the negative impact? Yes. Do the positive impacts outweigh the negative impacts? Then we have to accept that. Then we have to accept that. So similarly, you will start that, yes, ours is a democratic country, and many activists, like it may be Prashant Bhushan or Aruna Rodriguez, they are raising their voice against the GM crops. But there are many positive views also related to it. So you will now give, or you will now support your arguments. Yes, I am supporting this, the cultivation of GM crops, due to this. So I will try to discuss, there are many, but I will try to discuss figure-based 4 arguments that supports the cultivation of GM crops. So what are the arguments? The argument number 1, remember all the 4 arguments that you can give, right? So the argument number 1 is, yes, what I was talking about, that we should, what we should do, that positive and negative, that we should try to see if the positives outweigh the negatives. Now the activists say that there are negative impacts. There are negative impacts of this GM crop cultivation. There can be growth of super weeds, right? There can be growth of super weeds. There can be, this can be hazardous to the pollinators. The genetic diversity will get lost. But we have to see the positive also. To measure the positivity of this GM crop, you can give the example of BT cotton. That BT cotton cultivation started in year 2002 and 3. So what was the production? 13.6 billion bales. In a decade, the production rose to 39.8 billion bales. So you can see the figure, it has almost tripled. And if you compare the productivity from 302 to it has increased to 566, it's almost doubled. Almost doubled. So we see that even though the growth of weeds are there somewhat, right? Even the growth of weeds are there somewhat in cultivation across, or there is some tolerance to the different insect and pest. But the overall benefit what farmers had got with the introduction of BT cotton is outweighing the negative impacts. So BT cotton is a success that was introduced in 2002. If you'll not give chance to edible crops like DMH-11 and all, how we will measure the positive impacts of that? So by giving, you can say that we should measure the positive and negatives. And if we compare the result of the BT cotton, that DMH-11 and BT brinjal all should be given a chance in India, right? Chance in India. That's how that should be a argument number one, or how you will support the first statement. The second argument that you will be giving is the everybody is saying that food system, food chain, the genetic crops will enter our food chain. But you will see indirectly that GMO, that is genetically modified organism or crops, has already entered our food chain. How? Because you know that edible oil, India cannot meet the demand of the edible oil. We have to import from the other countries. So about 55 to 60% of our domestic oils are imported from the other countries, and 75% of this import is being imported from countries like Argentina, Brazil, Canada, and US. And they are using the what? They are using the GM crops. They are using the GM mustard only. So since we are using all the population, most of the population of India anyhow is using the edible oil from these countries. So we are already using the GM crops in our food system. So if any adverse impact would have been there, it would have been resulted, because from so many years, almost 10 years, we have been using this. So already we are using this and there is no such impact, right? And not only we are using it directly, but the BT cotton that is being cultivated in India, it is the seeds and all are used as feed for your poultry, feed for your cattle. So the milk or the meat, whatever is being produced in India, that has also the components of this GM crops from the BT cotton. So already we see that directly or indirectly, this has entered our food chain or food system, and still there is no such negative impact, pronounced negative impacts. So again, we can say that there is nothing to do with our food system, and this will be safe in the coming year. This can be your supportive point number two. Now, argument three or support point number three, what you can give is that the best is the Genetic Engineering Approval Committee has given the approval. Since 2010 only, GEAC have been doing a lot of research in different areas related to the pollinators, related to the allergy, related to the genetic diversity base, right? All sort of research have been done, and it's almost 2 decades have passed since this research have started. So if some body of India, government of India is doing some research, we have to have faith on that. We have to have trust on that. It has given a green signal for introduction of DMH-11. So we have to have faith and trust that yes, if they have done some research for last 20 years, that is too much, then we can move forward with that. That will be your supportive point number three, right? Now, argument number four, what you can give is the doubling. The government says that Dalwai's committee asked for doubling farmers' income, but in true sense, it's not still achieved. The activists who are saying that this crop should not be cultivated, they are just snatching away the right of the farmers for increased income, So with the introduction, the result of this GM crops or DMH-11 has shown that there has been increase of 25 to 28% in the yield. So that would definitely add to the income of the farmer. That would definitely add to the sustainable agriculture, right? So you can give this argument number 4 or point number 4. Apart from this, you can also talk of the food security issue that is being in India. The import will decrease of the oil, because we are, as you saw, that 55 to 60% we are importing. So that would help in saving the foreign exchequer of India. That will help in GDP growth. That will help in food security. So like this, also you can give some supplementary points also. But the main point, the main arguments that will support your answer, the argument number 4, that was doubling farmers' income, that giving the right to the farmers to have more income. Then the scientific studies of GESE, that was your support number, argument number 3. Argument number 2 was your food system. It has already entered and it has no such negative impacts. And argument number 1 was there is some check and balances, positives and negatives, and the positive outweigh. We can go with that decision, right? So that was your argument number 1. So that's how you can support the answer if they ask in the interview, or you can write a good answer if they ask in NABARD 2023 about the GM crops. So that's all, my dear friends. Thank you. Bye-bye. Good night. Take care.